Hi, Charlie.
Hi, Amy.
Welcome
Thank
to
you.
What Does Good Care Look Like?
Thank you for
And I
having
think
me.
you've got a few stories about that.
I hope so.
So you currently work with
Cornerstone Care Solutions. Yeah.
But you've got a very interesting background prior to that.
I'm
So you
very
started
varied.
in social care at 17?
17, yeah. So I started in the adult social care when I was 17 and young, fresh kind of faced, and wanted to work in care and didn't know how I felt about it at the time. So the first step was to kind of go into the kitchen as a kitchen assistant, which is a lot harder than what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
You never stop, but it was really fulfilling.
Good. And I suppose it gave you a little window into the world of social care.
Yeah,
Maybe it was physically a little window
into
into the world
I
of
think it was. I think it was a little
social
hatch at
Yeah.
one point, yeah. But it really did, because you got a chance to be around people and understand people without being in their kind of personal space at that time. So it was a nice gateway into care, really.
And then from there...
From there, I decided I wanted to go into full-time direct care.
Yeah.
So I moved onto the care team when I was 18.
At the same place?
At the same place. And did my training there and really grew to understand what was actually needed to be a carer.
Yeah.
I think sometimes our perception of what care is isn't always what happens, and it was really interesting to get a kind of fast-paced induction into that.
Yeah. Yeah, there's nothing like a social care induction for
There really
fast-paced
isn't.
induction.
It really is. You learn as you go.
You
and
do, you have to.
And it's the best way, because you're actually learning from
Yeah.
the people who you're supporting.
Yeah.
So a lot of the time they're the ones that teach you
Yeah.
what you need to do, rather than a course or a book or a leaflet.
Did you have a good induction? Did you
I had
have
a
a good leadership
fantastic,
team?
yes, I had a fantastic. They really understood a younger person coming into care, and they knew that they probably needed to train me slightly different to someone who had a care background or had been in care, or was actually just more mature as a person. And they spent a lot of time. It was very hands-on. It wasn't kind of a week in and then just get on with it. It was a 3-month induction, and there was continuous review of how I was coping, how I was managing. There was a lot of care put on the staff, I think, back then.
And I think sometimes we forget in inductions, don't we, to say the obvious things.
It's common sense.
Yeah, but actually, until you've done it, I remember my first role in care. I worked at the National Autistic Society, and it was a relief role whilst I was at uni at the same time. And there's so much you just don't know. Yeah. And sometimes you don't, like, you can be in a situation where, generally in life you might make a decision, but you're making that decision with so much added pressure on it, aren't you? So it could, you're not sure which way the right way is sometimes. And it's those explicit details, I think, sometimes that are really important for younger people coming into the sector.
It is, because I think when you're younger, you do have kind of one way of thinking. There's one way of doing it. It's your way. And as I said, I really didn't know you could make a cup of tea 20 ways until...
Well, where are there 20 people that want it?
Yeah. So it's a fantastic way to learn. And as a young person coming into care, I think I was very lucky in the induction process that I had.
Good. And I think that probably set you up for later, and we'll come to your training bit in a moment. But before that, I think it's interesting to learn why were you interested in social care? What drew you to it?
In all honesty, I was a user of children's services as a child into teenage until kind of 16. So I experienced it on the other side.
Okay.
And I think I knew what care was. I knew what care should look like. And I thought, this is something I could really be passionate about.
Yeah. Definitely.
And I could really make a difference in who better to support people in the care sector that has been in the care sector themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. You bring a completely different perspective, don't you?
You do. I think you bring a lot more honest and transparent view than some people do. Not saying you need to be in care to understand it, because you absolutely don't, because we listen to people who are in the care sector, but I think it gives you a bit more of a passionate edge if you have experienced relying on people, being in control of other people, that kind of element where people are really in control of your life. It really makes you understand how we need to support people from children to adulthood, and continuing in adulthood, with them controlling as much of their own life as they possibly can.
Yeah, and that's a good point, isn't it? That I've talked with somebody else today about the vulnerability that you can feel in that position.
Yeah.
And actually, perhaps with a little bit of empathy or sight into that, you're more deliberate when it comes to helping people to feel in control of their support.
Definitely. I think when people use that professional curiosity to kind of ask, well, how could we do this different? Or what happened here that made it go wrong? Or what happened that made it go right? Sometimes they lose sight of what was the person feeling during that process. And I know we'll probably move on to that with some of the training stuff later, but I think sometimes we forget to think about the different factors when we're looking at making care good for people. It's not just about having the right technology, having the right environment. It's how do we stop those factors that we can't control, such as that person's fear, the unknown, the anticipation of who's going to come in that day. All of these things, if we can concentrate on those, we can make care extremely good for that person.
Yeah, brilliant. So moving ahead then, you had your first role in social care, and you stayed in social care.
I absolutely stayed in social care. I love social care.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those careers and industries that people maybe aren't celebrated enough. And, you know, we do internally, I think, as social care, we really hype each other up. But I think it's a massive career, and you can change social care in many different elements, in different roles, from a carer to a kitchen assistant, from, you know, a supplier to a care home, to a CEO. Everybody has a part to play in social care, and that's why I love it. No matter what role you're in, you play a massive part in that.
Yeah. And you've said before that you've in all of the roles that you've delivered, there's been one thing that you followed through, and that was the training responsibilities.
It was the training, training,
why
teaching.
Why did that intrigue you, or why did that draw your interest most?
I think because sometimes we lose sight of what training can do for a person. Not just the person who's experienced in the course or the knowledge or information, but how they output it when they leave your session. And I think if we get that right, and we get the training element right, we are setting up a generation of people to put out the standard that you're training them in. Yeah. And that's a great thing to have, knowing that they're walking out of that room even 10% more confident than when they walked in. You're shaping somebody's capability, you're shaping somebody's confidence in themselves to do their job. That's how we change social care, and that's how we change people's perception of what we do. Yeah.
And I guess maybe training is just not a strong enough word for what it is,
it's
because
not.
It's a bit wider than that, isn't it? It's not just about turning up in a room and going through the slides and tick box at the end, did I get the questions right?
That's such a minute part of it.
More to it.
Yeah, that's the information part. The actual practical, the coaching, the reviewing, the analysing, refreshing, all of that comes, and that will continuously happen. Anybody that says I know everything about this course or I know everything about that is absolutely lying. Social care changes, we change as people, the people we work with change daily. So we will never stop learning from people, and as I say, training is a small element. When we add people to that, it just opens it up to a wider thing, really.
Yeah. We do get stuck, don't we, with training, like in our kind of annual refreshers.
It's a tick box,
kind of things.
A training matrix. We get so concentrated on the matrix itself, where we actually stop looking at the skill set within that matrix, I think. And that's where I think we've gone wrong, maybe, since, and I know people say a bit since COVID, but since COVID, it made it so much easier for people to move to a online training portfolio. Yeah. And that's just continued because they thought, this is how we save money. And some of that face-to-face has stopped, and that's what we hear when we go into different services. In Cornerstone we go into so many services, and some of the areas where we see there are some shortfalls in staff knowledge and skill set is they do a yearly refresher online, and there's no follow-up, there's no competency, and there's no coaching guidance, and we all learn differently. You will learn very different to how I learn. Although we get the same information, we'll perceive it differently.
Yeah.
How we understand it, how we then move that forward in our career. So, you know, time needs to be spent on people after a training course.
Yeah.
It's bigger than just training, definitely.
It is much wider. And I guess coaching's a massive part of that, isn't it? And working alongside people and role modelling.
Yes.
And all the kinds of things that it sounds like you've had in your career.
Yeah, I've had some great role models and still do. What drives me to any career change is always where I'm searching for who can make me better, who can continue to help me grow in social care. So I always find when I change a career or a role within the same company, it's because I've outgrown the role I'm in and I want to do better in social care. And that's just a personal thing. Everybody will be different. My mother left the police force and she went into a care home to work as a domestic, and she stayed there for another 10 years after retiring from the police force, and she enjoyed that much more than the police force. And so that just goes to show, you know, with the right support, mentorship, social care can be one of the best jobs.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what role you're in. And that's what I do. It's when I move and when I joined Cornerstone, it was for the values that an organisation can support me to put out.
Yeah.
And I've done that throughout my whole career.
Yeah. What are the particular career highlights for you?
I think maintaining my certification to teach in behaviour training, that's a big thing for me, and I've been very lucky that every organisation I've gone to has maintained that with me, because it's one of the things I'm really passionate about. I think one of the most recent highlights would be joining Cornerstone and doing something completely different to what I've done before. So I'm now able to directly impact services that need help, whether they call out for help before it's too late, or whether we're going in to support homes and administration that has now gone past some of that element of requesting help. And it's problem solving, it's very strategic thinking, very fast paced, and I love that element of it. I love that we can make a direct impact very quickly to help save a provider, help save people having to move homes, save staff from having to find other jobs where they've worked somewhere for 30 years. It's those little things that it's a job someone has to do, but you can really make a difference doing it, and not just in financial status, but actually in generally affecting how people feel in their own home and in their own jobs. And
I guess, where do you start with that? So somebody's called you up and they've said, I think, well, that's the first step, isn't it?
That's the first
admitting the problem.
Actually picking up that phone, 100%.
And they're saying, Charlie, I think that I need some help with compliance, maybe? Is that
it
what
could be
people
anything.
normally say,
so at the moment, we have some compliance. So with the new quality statements and the way it's evidenced, some people are wanting a lot more mock inspections in line with the new framework. There's people wanting us to do staffing reviews, dependency tool reviews, to look at, are they giving the correct support? Are they having the correct staffing on? They're also looking for us to do more organisational reviews, so looking at their organisational support teams and saying, do we have the right support teams to support these services? So the good thing about social care is they do change the way they look at their services when things happen. So there's been a lot of financial changes in the social care recently, so people are now looking at, okay, where can we take some things away from where it doesn't impact the direct care? And that's really nice to see providers doing that, because they're looking at themselves as providers rather than looking at the care staff and the home. So anything to do with social care, I think everyone at the moment is just looking to revamp and review. And I think sometimes it's just peace of mind. We work with a lot of small organisations to national organisations, and they're all looking for the same thing, reassurance. Reassurance that the teams they have that they're employing to do a job are doing it, and they're doing it so that there's no surprises.
when you get into that situation and somebody's called you up, I'm imagining on a big red telephone, you know, like emergency helpline.
Oh, it's like a bat signal. Yeah,
I thought so.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you took the call.
100%.
And ready to
I put
dive
my
in with
cape
your
on,
cape.
ready for 100%. That's exactly how it is.
I thought that's what would be happening.
100%.
When that happens, I've got it all visualised.
I know, me too. I'm going to go and try it now after this.
What's the first thing you look at? What's the first thing you think? Right, okay, we've potentially got a failing service here, and I know the most important thing for me to do right now is X.
In all honesty, it's find the right person to support them.
Right, okay.
Because we all have strengths,
yeah,
and we all have weaknesses as human beings and as professionals. So I would look at our team with my MD, and I would say, okay, this is the situation. Who is best to handle this? Who is more specialist in the areas they're looking for, so that we can give them a more bespoke service. So, you know, if it's financial, it would be someone that's, you know, got a background in finance management.
The failing might not be anything to do with the operations of the service
100%.
or the care that's being delivered, but
you
as
don't
a business, you can't prop it up anymore. You can't make the numbers work.
No, and sometimes, and we're very honest with the providers that contact us, and we will always tell them the truth whether they want to hear it or not. And so sometimes, you know, we'll say, unfortunately, the problem is you, or unfortunately, the problem is this, and you know, we will give them a thorough, honest review of their service. And I think you're right. It's not always sometimes what they think the problem is. Sometimes it's around. And I know it's such an old word now, but, you know, looking at the root cause and finding out how have we got to this point, what have we missed, and let's not just put a piece of paper in place to make it look better. Let's actually support you to embed this so you're not going to be calling us back in a year down the line.
Yeah, so you're setting them up for the future as well.
100%.
And I think that's probably one of the challenges of today's world with social care, with operating care homes or social care organisations, is that the skill set is so vast, isn't it? So if you've got, you know, and it depends on scale of the organisation, I suppose, but, you know, for most situations, most kind of SME situations, they're not going to have a specialist in finance or a specialist in health, or, you know,
that's why they hire people.
Or a specialist in health and safety.
Absolutely.
All of these things.
Absolutely.
So, you know, how do you put all those different hats on as a registered manager and make it happen?
It's really hard. And I think managers are having to retrain to be managers because the accountability and responsibility they have is different now than it was 10 years ago. Absolutely is. And I know you mentioned estates, and, you know, I think some of the managers tear their hair out at service contracts and compliance checks. And, you know, me and my colleague was having a conversation today actually on the way here about maintenance records, and, you know, how we're paying maintenance in some services that we're finding, you know, minimum wage, yet we're expecting them to be able to look after the whole compliance of a 100-bedded care home, you know, with TMVs and Legionella and, you know, fire risks. So I think social care, you know, services need to look at, you know, reviewing how they're supporting people to manage those services, and not one person can do it all. And so that's why we always say it's best to get someone external, because, you know, you've got someone coming in that can give you the expertise in the areas you're looking at. We have a team that covers everything from, you know, being a CEO of a provider to, you know, being a kitchen assistant and knowing what it takes to do that. So I think you need someone to be able to look at all elements of the business, because it takes everything for that home to work and succeed. Yeah,
absolutely. And you can't be expected to be all things.
You cannot. No one can.
I think maybe what I've learned recently is finding your skill set and then plugging the gaps and making sure that there's an element of emotional awareness, isn't there? Like that you kind of understand yourself, you accept it.
Yeah.
I can do that bit, but I'm not very good at this bit.
Yeah, we've all got things, and it's support. Yeah, and one of the things that me and Lucy are quite lucky with Cornerstone is, as a senior team, we each have what each other doesn't. So we fit really well, and we've now started doing that with our core team and the rest of our consultants. Is we will look for consultants that have a specialism in a certain area. So between the whole team, there's going to be multiple conversations and different opinions about, professional debates, let's say, about a different situation. And that's really important to have. You need to have someone to question your decision making and to say, well, why do you need to do it that way? Or what about this way? And they're really good conversations to have.
Definitely. I think a good argument always is always healthy.
It is.
As long as you resolve it afterwards.
Yeah, and but it's nice, and that's why we kind of call them professional debates, because at the end of it, there's an outcome, and we're in agreement, whether it's our opinion that's, in the forefront or not. We have come to a resolution together, and we are 100% behind each other to move that forward.
And you all know, you've all put the truth on the table, haven't you, in that situation?
Yeah,
so
definitely.
Good. Sharing of ideas.
Yeah.
Just going back a couple of steps to your kind of training that we said has followed you through your career. You've said before about that you particularly like the type of training that you do because of, I think, because of the something that perhaps we don't always think about when we think about kind of breakaway or training,
holdings and things like that,
and restraint training that's necessary at times, is actually the person's experience of that situation in the middle. So I just want to dwell on that for a while, because I think that's a really important discussion. It
is. I think for me and my background in using care services, and really growing up in care services, I always remember how it felt when somebody was trying to control me emotionally or physically.
Okay.
And I think we forget that sometimes when we're on the other end and we're having to take control or direct a situation. And so for me, who I go with to use as a training provider is really important, because they have to hold the same values that I do, in the sense of how do we make this quite undignified situation for somebody. They're at their most vulnerable. They may be about to have their liberty taken away. How do we do it in a dignified way where they feel supported, not controlled? And it took, and it still does, I still review it on an annual basis. Is there something out there that I feel fits me better to teach? But I find with the Crisis Prevention Institute is they have adapted throughout the years, and they have changed throughout the years. So, 10 years ago, maybe a little bit longer, you were trained in advanced holdings to bend people over and, have their arm really wrapped around you. So they were in a really undignified and quite a stressful situation.
Because the focus really in certain situations was more on
staff safety,
controlling the situation,
more on staff safety,
and staff
100%.
Safety, and perhaps others in the environment as well. But it wasn't about the experience of the person in that situation.
And since I would say in the last 15 years it has improved. I think because we've seen different things on Panorama and things have come to light where some training has been used against people, and I think providers like CPI and others do now need to make an effort to review practices
regularly,
100%. When there's a case law that needs to be changed, or when something happens and there's someone harmed or there's a fatal incident due to excessive force. I like the fact that CPI review and they teach that in their training, and when things change they tell you why, and I like that they risk assess their level of management, so there isn't just a disengagement or a holding, there's a low, medium and high. So you're able to risk assess with that person on the spot within seconds to look at how do we support this person the best way where everybody, including themselves, is safe. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about using a certain provider, is because their values fully align with my, as a previous user that was in those situations. I think it gives you the ability to take control of a situation, because absolutely you have to, but it's done in a respectful and supportive way for the individual, and it's reassuring throughout. So you may be being more directive, but you're still being supportive throughout the whole process, and especially post-crisis.
Yeah. And I think that post-crisis is the most important bit, isn't it? Because another thing that I think we can improve in lots of situations is our debrief.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah. Because learning only happens surely through reflection.
It does.
And when no one gets, these situations, they will be tense, they'll be full of anxiety for all parties involved. And actually, you've kind of got to get down from that position, haven't you, to then review, look back, decide what went well, decide what didn't go well, do it with the person as well, but then you need to do it with the staff team.
You do.
Yeah.
You do. And I think that's what we see in a lot of services we go into. There's that piece missing. So what will happen is they'll have a crisis situation or a risk behaviour that's managed. Their documentation, perfect. The incident form's great. They've reported it to who they needed to report it to. But what you find missing is that post-crisis for the individual and the staff team involved. Yeah. That's what it is. It's a crisis situation. It can cause trauma.
Yeah, absolutely.
To both parties involved. And I think we forget that, and we concentrate so much on a trauma response, but we don't actually look at the trauma support after the fact. And yeah, for me, we spend too little time on post-crisis when actually that's where we can get it right.
And actually, I think that's where you rebuild and learn with the person post-incident, where actually some real good learning bridges, future plans, aspirations, aims. I've had so many great crisis conversations with particularly children when I've worked in children's services.
You find out so much from a child after.
Because it was brewing to something, wasn't it? And actually supporting them through that, and it could be hours, supporting them through that post-crisis period is actually really powerful.
It is. And I've seen children who just couldn't regulate themselves at all. To a year down the line, it's not a quick fix. Children are learning, adults are still learning, but especially with children, it could take up to a year. But if you can, a year down the line, see them 50% regulate themselves, that's amazing. That's such an achievement for that child and for the staff. And I think it's about putting the effort in and having those honest, transparent conversations, and just realising that we can learn so much. It just sometimes takes time, and we can't rush these things.
Yeah.
If we can find something that happens straight away and you're like, oh my God, that's amazing, we've been able to change how we deal with that situation, that's a great thing. But it does take a lot of hard work, and it takes a lot of reviewing, having those conversations as a group. And as staff, we always need to learn, because, as I say, we're working with different people, and these people change. So how we supported them yesterday will be different to how we support them today.
When you've worked with teams and things have gone a bit wrong and you kind of got to that position with them, what themes and trends are you picking up from that? Maybe what are the things that maybe we could put into practice earlier that would prevent getting to that position?
It goes back to that word training. It's coaching. It's giving the staff the confidence and the ability to speak out, to say when they're not feeling confident with a certain situation. We find that, as I say, you go in, they've got the training certificate, and that's the end of it. Whereas actually, if we're expecting these staff teams to work with vulnerable children and adults, where they're having to be put in a situation that can cause trauma, we're forgetting that there's a lot more support needed other than just a training session. There's emotional support, there's reviewing of them, their understanding, reviewing of how they interact with each other. You know what it's like in care homes. You'll always get that one staff member who doesn't get on with, Mrs. Smith on one shift, that doesn't work with Mr. Smith on the other shift. But what I find with responding to behaviour management and supporting people regulating themselves, no matter how much Mr. and Mrs. Smith don't like each other, you've got to bring them professionally together as a team to at least respect each other and trust each other enough to give that consistent support. And I think sometimes they're the conversations we miss with our staff, in them understanding that this will absolutely help them be a better carer, be a better manager, you know, whatever role they're in. But ultimately, them working together and understanding how that training and competency and skill set is put into practice will ultimately make that person feel safer in their own home, whether it is their own home or a shared home or children's home or care home or unit that's secure. Any situation, we can still make people feel safer.
Yeah. I'm hearing lots about kind of reflection, about coaching, about leadership actually being more than the tick boxes of the different criteria that will satisfy CQC's list.
Yeah, and unfortunately sometimes I think because there's been such a increase in poor inspections,
Okay.
I think sometimes people concentrate on how we provide the evidence, which is just as important. We have to provide the evidence.
The forms need to be filled
They
in.
do, but it's about what's the embedding behind that form.
Yeah.
What's the embedding behind that quality statement, behind that regulation. I think that is where people need to go back to basics on, really.
Which really is the human side of things, isn't it?
That's exactly what it's for.
It just brings us back to that human connection,
Yeah.
and whether that's with the people that we're supporting, or whether that's with the staff member that you're coaching, whether that's through a new member of staff that you're inducting, it's about how you are sat alongside them and supporting them and understanding them and being in tune with them.
Yeah, I'm quite old school in a sense. I love root cause analysis, and I know there's lots of different ways we can do that now and different ways to do it. But I was trained in the 5 whys, and I think with any piece of evidence, if you use, and you don't have to do anything major, it's just a key takeaway that I do. But if I'm looking at a form as evidence, I ask, okay, so why do we need that form? And they'll say, okay, well, we need that form to provide evidence that we do this. Okay, so why do we do this? Well, we do this because of this. Okay, so why do we need that?
Yeah.
And ultimately, within 5 whys, you should ultimately get back to that person you're supporting, child or adult. And that's just to remind people, this piece of paper ultimately is just an extension of what we need to do to support this individual.
Yeah.
And I think get back to the core element of the people we support.
Yeah, brilliant. So, in summary then, what would you say are the components of good care? What does good care look like for you?
I'm a very transparent person, so for me, transparency in care is good care. So celebrating successes in care, being open and honest when we make mistakes as individuals or as a team or as a provider, seeking help before it's too late. When you start to see those indicators, actually say, I need help. We would do it as staff.
Yeah.
If you don't know how to do something or you don't understand something, you would put your hand up and say, I'm so sorry, I don't know what I'm doing here. I think providers need to remember there's no harm in asking for help, whether it's from a colleague or external, whoever. Just ask. No one's perfect. And I think, for me, what makes good care is understanding that everything we do is for the person at the centre. And as long as we can justify everything we do that leads back to that individual.
Your 5 whys.
And my 5 whys, I'm obsessed with them. If we can lead back to that person, then what we're doing is right. If it leads back to the provider on the care element, we're doing it wrong.
Yeah, brilliant.
CQC, I will argue the point with CQC till I'm red in the face. If we lead that back to the person and it meets everything it needs to meet, then it doesn't matter how I present it. You know, the evidence is there. The person is being supported. So, and there's ways, you know, we go into services all the time and say, okay, CQC like to see it this way, but there's no regulation that says it has to be produced that way. All you're doing is evidencing how we support in that individual. As long as you've got that, you'll get it fine.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much.
No worries. Thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.